First contact assessment. Vexar adjusted the settings on his observation pod as it slipped silently into Earth's atmosphere. The cloaking field hummed, a reassuring vibration against his four-fingered hand. His violet eyes, adapted for the dim light of his homeworld, narrowed as he surveyed the blue-green planet below. Begin preliminary scan, he instructed the ship's eye. The hegemony expected his report within one planetary rotation. His species, the Zarkonian, had conquered 17 worlds in the last century. Earth would be the 18th, if his assessment deemed it worth the effort. The scanner projected holographic data into the air. Earth's technological development, military capabilities, resource profiles, and species behavior patterns appeared in neat columns. Vexar's tendrils, sensory organs that ran along his skull like rigid hair, twitched with mild interest. Primitive propulsion systems, he noted, recording his observations. Nuclear capabilities, but rudimentary compared to hegemony standards. No unified planetary defense. No detection of our advanced technology. No established contact with other spacefaring species. He guided his craft lower, selecting a sparsely populated region on a landmass the natives called North America. For closer study, here he could observe without detection, while gathering more detailed information on the dominant species. Humans appear physically inferior. Vexar continued his report as he studied the bipedal creatures moving about below. Soft external covering. No natural armor. Poor sensory capabilities. Require artificial protection from environmental conditions. The hegemony's protocol was clear. Assess, categorize, and determine conquest priority. Worlds with useful resources but minimal defense capabilities received immediate attention. Based on initial scans, Earth seemed to fall perfectly into this category. Vexar established his hidden observation post atop a forested mountain. From here, his equipment could monitor human communications, study their social structures, and analyze their response patterns. The hegemony particularly valued this psychological data. Understanding how a species reacted under pressure could determine the most efficient conquest strategy. For 3 days, Vexar observed. He watched humans in their dwellings, monitored their primitive global information network, and studied their military installations from afar. His assessment remained unchanged. Technologically inferior, politically divided, militarily vulnerable. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. His sensors detected seismic activity beneath the ocean floor near a densely populated coastal region. Within minutes, a massive wave formed, what humans called a tsunami. Vexar watched with clinical interest. Natural disasters provided excellent opportunities to assess species response patterns. The hegemony valued predictability in subject species. Those who panicked, who abandoned their weak, who failed to organize effectively. These made ideal conquest targets. Those with rigid response protocols were also valuable. Once their procedures were understood, they could be exploited. What Vexar witnessed defied categorization. As the tsunami struck, he expected chaos. Instead, he observed something different. Emergency systems activated almost immediately. Warning messages spread through multiple channels. Evacuation procedures commenced with surprising efficiency for a species without central control. Most intriguing were the individual responses. Humans moved toward danger rather than away from it. They entered damaged structures to extract trapped individuals. They formed improvised rescue teams. They shared limited resources. Behavior pattern anomaly detected. Vexar noted, his tendrils vibrating with confusion. Subjects demonstrating non-optimal survival strategies, sacrificing individual safety for group preservation. This contradicted hegemony models. Species typically prioritize genetic lineage protection or hierarchical preservation. These humans seem to operate under different imperatives. Vexar moved his observation pod closer, hovering above a particularly devastated area. His scanners captured images of humans working in coordinated teams, despite having no apparent formal organization. They adapted to changing conditions without central direction. Most puzzling, they appeared to value each life equally, expending extraordinary effort to save even the weakest members. Further study required, he concluded, altering his original report. The hegemony would not be pleased with the delay, but inaccurate assessment could lead to costly miscalculations. The next day, Vexar decided to observe human military operations directly. Using his personal cloaking field, he infiltrated a training facility. What he witnessed there further complicated his assessment. Unlike hegemony forces, which operated on strict hierarchical protocols, these humans practiced something different. Their training simulations constantly changed. Commanders deliberately introduced unpredictable elements. When strategies failed, rather than punishment, he observed analysis and adaptation. Most concerning was their approach to technology. During one exercise, a group was given unfamiliar equipment with no instructions. Within hours, they had not only mastered its use, but improved its functionality. Adaptive capacity exceeding baseline parameters, Vexar recorded. Recommend caution in standard conquest approach. That night, as he compiled his data, a severe electrical storm developed. Atmospheric discharges, lightning, struck with unusual frequency near his observation post. His equipment registered increasing interference. A direct strike hit his cloaking field generator. Systems overloaded. Emergency alarms blared. His position was compromised. Initiating emergency protocols, Vexar stated calmly, though his tendrils were rigid with alarm. He ordered his craft to enter self-preservation mode. It would burrow underground until repairs could be completed. He gathered essential equipment and prepared to evacuate. As he emerged from his craft, rain pelting his scaled skin, he heard the unmistakable sound of human vehicles approaching. They had detected the energy surge from his failing systems. Vexar fled into the forest, his night vision allowing him to navigate the unfamiliar terrain. His personal cloaking device flickered unreliably. He needed to reach his secondary position, a cave system he had identified during initial surveys. He miscalculated the impact of the storm on the landscape. The river he attempted to cross had transformed into a raging torrent. As he leaped across, the water caught him, pulling him downstream. His head struck a submerged object. Darkness claimed him. Consciousness returned slowly. Vexar's biosensors indicated he had been unconscious for 7.3 hours. He was no longer in the river. Instead, he lay on a soft surface in an enclosed space, a human dwelling. His equipment was gone, his cloaking device deactivated, his emergency beacon damaged. A human female entered his field of vision. She showed no fear, despite his alien appearance. This defied all hegemony predictions about first contact scenarios. "You're awake," she said. His translator implant converted her speech. "I found you by the river. You were injured." Vexar remained silent, assessing. Hegemony protocol dictated immediate self-termination if captured. Yet this wasn't capture in any traditional sense. The human appeared to be helping him. "I'm Dr. Maya Chen," she continued, approaching slowly. "I've treated your injuries as best I could, though your physiology is obviously different from ours." "Why?" The question escaped before Vexar could suppress it. "Why what?" the human asked. "Why assist an unknown entity? This provides no survival advantage." Dr. Chen's facial features formed what his cultural database identified as a smile. "Not everything we do is about survival advantage," she replied, checking the covering on his injured limb. "Some things we do simply because they're right." The concept did not translate effectively into his understanding. "I won't tell anyone about you," she added. "Not yet. That should be your choice, when you're ready." As the human tended his injuries, Vexar's communication implant vibrated. A message from the hegemony. "Scout Vexar. Report status immediately. Preliminary invasion fleet departs in 15 rotations. Conquest preparation proceeds on established timeline." The human had saved his life. Now he was expected to facilitate her world's conquest. For the first time in his existence as a hegemony scout, Vexar questioned his purpose. The hidden strength. Over the next several days, Vexar observed Dr. Chen's behavior closely. She provided nourishment compatible with his biochemistry, changed the coverings on his injuries, and spoke to him without demanding responses. Most surprising, she prevented other humans from discovering him when search teams passed nearby. "They're looking for unusual energy signatures," she explained after turning away a military patrol. "Something lit up every sensor for 50 miles during that storm." "You deceived them," Vexar noted. "You violated group loyalty." Dr. Chen sat across from him, her expression thoughtful. "It's more complicated than that. I believe first contact should be peaceful, by choice, not with someone injured and afraid." "I am not afraid," Vexar stated automatically. "Of course not," she replied with another smile. "My mistake." As his injuries healed, Vexar began asking questions. The hegemony would value this intelligence. At least, that's what he told himself. "Your species lacks centralized governance," he observed. "This creates inefficiency." "It creates diversity," Dr. Chen countered. "Different approaches, different solutions. We found strength in that diversity. Your technology is primitive. By your standards, certainly. But we've gone from first flight to space exploration in less than a century. How does that compare to your species' development curve?" The question disturbed him. The Zarkonian had taken 3 centuries to achieve similar advancement. "Your military forces are divided by territorial boundaries," he continued. "Yet we still defend each other when threatened," she replied. "We've learned that lesson through painful experience." On the 7th day of his recovery, Vexar received another hegemony message. "Invasion preparation accelerated. Fleet departs in 7 rotations. Complete reconnaissance immediately." That night, when Dr. Chen slept, Vexar accessed her information devices. He had recovered sufficiently to bypass their primitive security measures. What he discovered transformed his understanding completely. Humans had fought countless wars among themselves. They had nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times. Yet each time, they adapted. They created cooperative structures without sacrificing their independence. Most importantly, they learned from failure instead of punishing it. Vexar compared human history to hegemony records. A pattern emerged that the hegemony had never encountered. Humans innovated fastest when under greatest pressure. Their response to existential threats wasn't capitulation. It was transformation. The hegemony's standard conquest strategy relied on overwhelming technology advantage and predictable enemy response patterns. But these humans, they defied prediction. They improvised. They cooperated without central control. They valued innovation over protocol. Vexar made his decision as dawn broke. He would betray the hegemony. He waited until Dr. Chen awoke. "I must tell you something," he said. "Your world faces imminent danger." Over the next hour, he explained everything. The hegemony, their conquest protocol, the imminent invasion. Dr. Chen listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly grave. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked when he finished. "Your species represents something unexpected," Vexar replied, his tendrils vibrating with emotional complexity. "The hegemony believes conquest will be simple. They are incorrect. And you want to prevent this war. The hegemony has never failed in conquest, but they have never encountered humans. The conflict would be devastating for both sides." Dr. Chen was silent for a long moment. "What do you need from me?" "Access to your global communication network and military leadership," Vexar said. "I will provide technical specifications of hegemony weaponry and tactical vulnerabilities. You have 7 planetary rotations to prepare." What followed was an unprecedented alliance. Dr. Chen's scientific credentials granted them access to government officials. Vexar's knowledge provided Earth with technological insights centuries beyond their development curve. Not everyone believed them. Many suspected deception, but Dr. Chen's unwavering advocacy and Vexar's detailed technical knowledge eventually convinced enough key leaders. 3 days before the invasion fleet's arrival, Vexar received a final hegemony communication. Scout Vexar identified as compromised. Termination authorized. Advanced destroyer dispatched to your location. They know, he told Dr. Chen. An advanced ship comes. It will sterilize this region to eliminate evidence of my betrayal. How much time do we have? Hours. Earth's military mobilized with surprising speed. Using Vexar's technical specifications, they modified existing weapon systems. They couldn't match hegemony technology, but they could create unexpected countermeasures. The destroyer emerged from hyperspace over the North American continent that evening. Its energy signature matched Vexar's prediction exactly. Earth's hastily modified defense systems engaged immediately. The battle was brief but definitive. The destroyer, expecting no meaningful resistance, was unprepared for weapons specifically calibrated to its vulnerabilities. When it crashed into an unpopulated desert region, Earth had its first extraterrestrial technology cache, and proof of Vexar's claims. Global unification happened faster than even Vexar anticipated. Faced with existential threat, humans set aside territorial disputes and ideological differences. Resources were pooled. Knowledge was shared freely. Innovation accelerated exponentially. By the time the main hegemony fleet arrived, Earth was ready. Not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with thousands of unpredictable adaptations to hegemony tactics. Each Earth nation had developed different countermeasures. Each response was unique. The hegemony, faced with this unprecedented defense and the captured destroyer revealing their tactical approach, did something they had never done before. They withdrew to reassess. In the aftermath, Vexar stood before the United Nations, the first extraterrestrial being to address Earth's leadership collectively. The hegemony will return, he warned. They cannot accept failure, but they will proceed cautiously now. You have time, perhaps years, to prepare further. And you? Asked Dr. Chen, who stood beside him as Earth's liaison to their first alien ally. What will you do now? Vexar's tendrils rippled in what humans would soon learn was contemplative emotion. I will stay, he said, to assist your preparations and to learn. Learn what? Asked a world leader. How to be more human, Vexar replied. Your species has something the hegemony cannot understand and therefore fears most: unpredictable compassion. You saved an enemy scout instead of capturing me. You united instead of fragmenting under pressure. You innovate without permission. These qualities may save not just your world, but others under hegemony control. As the assembly erupted in discussion, Vexar turned to Dr. Chen. I made an error in my initial assessment, he admitted quietly. What was that? She asked. I reported that humans appeared physically inferior. I failed to recognize that your true strength lies elsewhere, in qualities the hegemony cannot measure and therefore cannot predict. Dr. Chen smiled. That's the most human observation you've made yet. In the months that followed, as Earth prepared for the inevitable return of the hegemony, Vexar compiled a new report, not for his former masters, but for humanity. Its title, The Unmeasurable Strength of Unpredictable Compassion: Why Humanity Will Prevail. The hegemony had conquered 17 worlds with overwhelming force. Earth would be different. Earth would be the first to fight back, not just for itself, but eventually for all subjugated worlds. And their most powerful weapon wasn't technology at all, but something Vexar was only beginning to understand: the unpredictable adaptability of hope.